He says words that get me in trouble on Twitch. I'm not watching it. Stop.
Game files at one point or another, but were never made available to players for whatever reason. First up, we've got Frostmourne.
The fuck is that? It's a 4-second attack speed? Holy shit. And it has intellect. The wielder of Frostmourne will become the new Lich King. Hail to the king, baby. Okay.
Frostmourne was actually in the game files since WoW's launch, but was never shown in-game until Wrath of the Lich King's expansion in 2008.
Wow.
And I know you will show restraint when exercising your great power.
That's the best part right here.
With the official lore behind the weapon being that it was destroyed by Tyrion, it's very unlikely to ever be obtainable by players, especially since Frost Death Knights take the remains of the broken sword to make their artifact weapons. The sword in the game files is the only weapon in-game with a meta socket on it. For those of you who probably don't remember, meta sockets were only ever in helms and could only be socketed with special meta gems, which are stronger than normal gems.
Wow.
But they don't appear on any new pieces of gear anymore since Warlords of Draenor. The weapon also gives you a Lich King buff, presumably changing your armor to that of the Lich King's.
Wait, what the
fuck? Or
fuck?
maybe it would actually turn you into the Lich King, making you hostile to everyone until you were killed by your friends.
That would be cool
Maybe
as
you'd
fuck.
even delete your character once you died, since the weapon in lore does consume your soul. That's probably why it was never made available to players. And totally not because it's the most iconic weapon in the game, wielded by one of the most popular villains ever.
No, that's not why.
Frostmourne hungers.
The next weapon, called Shard of the Defiler, is a legendary dagger. It supposedly has the ability to turn your character model into a demon, and gives a passive 15% melee attack speed boost and crit chance. When it was very first data mined in vanilla WoW, it also did some of its melee damage as shadow damage, which would have been interesting because, as far as I know, there has never been a melee weapon in game that has done magical damage. There was once a quest item dagger in the beta version of the Burning Crusade that did arcane damage instead of physical damage.
What the fuck?
And mages in beta were able to get it to insane levels of damage,
that's actually
making
really
battle
good.
mages a real and overpowered
That'd
thing.
be best in slot.
But that never made it to life, and neither did this dagger. Some speculation on the dagger was that it was supposed to be part of the original Hyjal raid from vanilla WoW, not the battle for Mount Hyjal added in BC.
Oh wow.
For those of you who don't know, the zone of Hyjal was blocked off all the way until Cataclysm, when it was turned into a leveling zone. And there were rumors that Blizzard had plans for some kind of raid there.
This would have been so cool if they did this.
While the zone was not accessible to players, it was fully textured. It even had the skeleton of Archimonde on the tree for a while. A lot of effort was put into the zone, but it was never used for anything. And this dagger might have been a reward from the scrap zone, seeing as its name can be traced back to Archimonde, and it gave a demon appearance.
Wow.
Next up, we've got Thunderfury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker Deprecated. Now, Thunderfury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker, is a legendary very much in the game. But this weapon, Thunderfury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker Deprecated, has the same stats as the regular Thunderfury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker, just without the chance on hit effect, or any model data. But what's interesting about Thunderfury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker Deprecated is that it has always required you to be level 100 to equip it. Way back, years ago, before Warlords of Draenor was even a thought in the developers' minds, and the max level was still 60. Most of the weapons in this video will either not have a weapon requirement, or have one appropriate to the time the weapon was added to the game. Thunderfury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker Deprecated is probably the first weapon ever put into the game files that had the level requirement of 100. The next weapon on this video is actually a fishing pole. Crafty's pole is the only legendary fishing pole in the game files. It only requires a level 1 in fishing to use, and gives you 1,000 skill increase in fishing. The pole was most likely used to test fishing, and probably still is to some extent today. The fishing pole has a flavor text that says, "Just holding this fishing pole makes you shiver with excitement. This is possibly the most amazing thing you've ever seen."
I bet it's not.
Most items not made available to players don't have any kind of flavor text.
I think that's kind of funny.
A lot of items in game don't have flavor text either. There's also an offhand in the game that you can catch by fishing in Orgrimmar called Old Crafty,
I spent a month
which
farming
this
for
poll
this.
is probably a reference to,
I hated my life
with
afterwards.
the flavor text said to be the craftiest fish in Orgrimmar. It appears he was outsmarted at last. Funny enough, there was a bug for a while that wouldn't allow players to actually loot Old Crafty when he was caught, making it a very elusive to catch fish.
Oh, he's
indeed.
very crafty.
Really living
do you
up to its
expect?
flavor text. Data mined in vanilla, the original twin blades of Azeroth followed lore a lot more closely than that to the warglaives that did make it into the game and drop from Illidan. The twin blades were a weapon that had an on-use effect, which would split the weapon into two separate weapons,
What the fuck?
called the Warglaive of Azeroth right and left.
Damn.
Its equip effect was pretty similar to the effects of the Warglaives in game.
That's a pretty fucking
Extra
cool.
melee haste and bonus damage when fighting demons. These never added Warglaives also had the same model as the Warglaives the Demon Hunter on the box art for Vanilla WoW is using,
How convenient.
maybe indicating that they were going to be added sometime in Vanilla WoW, but were scrapped and replaced with two separate legendary weapons with better graphics that dropped from Illidan later on in the Burning Crusade and Black Temple.
It's probably a good idea.
The Fudge Hammer is a legendary weapon that appeared in early alpha builds for
Fudge
Warlords of
Hammer?
Draenor. Its flavor text reads,
What the
Legendary weapon of Warlord Blackhand. Legendary status derived from its name, not its power. The hammer is obviously just a joke item,
Fucking
either put in
GMs.
the game to mess with data miners or for testing. But I'm not sure what kind of testing could be
Imagine if
done
he
with
actually
the
dropped a
Fudge Hammer.
legendary hammer.
It's not like it has amazing stats or anything.
WoD
and
would
its
have been a
only
lot
effect
better.
is to get +2 attack power, which is a pretty insignificant amount of attack
Most
power.
legendaries are better than that.
So I'm pretty sure it's just a joke. Blizzard likes to put some stuff in the game files sometimes just to mess with data miners. Next up, we've got the Troll Guitar.
What the
This
fuck?
weapon is a unique model guitar used by the troll in the band that plays during the Darkmoon Fair. The
Oh.
effect of the weapon is to make your character appear to
He's
play
using
the
it
guitar.
wrong.
There are two
It's the other
other
way
guitar
around.
weapons in the game which were available to players at one point
I
in
never have
time,
heard of this before.
and are used by the other NPCs during the
What in the
concert in
fuck?
the Darkmoon Fair. But for some reason, the troll guitar was never made available for whatever reason.
Wow.
So now, if you want your character in game to look like he's playing a guitar, you better get lucky and grab either the Blood Elf guitar, or the Arcanite Ripper off the Black Market Auction House, or just play an undead. During the Argent Crusade daily quests, you had to equip a
that's
lance
actually
and
really
mount
weird.
one of the many racial mounts available to you,
Okay.
and then go off into amazing mounted combat that 90% of the WoW community hated.
I
But
liked
did you
it.
know
I thought it was
Blizzard had intended to include specific
Except if I
racial
lost,
lances
then it
as
was
well?
broken.
The idea was scrapped pretty early though, as Blizzard only finished 5 of them before stopping that shit and just making faction-specific lances instead. The ones they did manage to make were the Draenei, Gnome, Dwarf, Human, and Troll lances.
Blizzard gave up.
Once again confirming
Wow.
Blizzard's alliance bias, as they were clearly working on the alliance lances before Horde. Next up, we've got another joke weapon used for testing called Teagle's Trashbringer. This weapon was added in the Wrath of the Lich King Alpha and given to Death Knights with their
Here
talents.
we go.
Teagle was the username of WoW's raid designer at the time, and the weapon had the flavor text,
That's
trash
Jeff.
getting you down.
That's
In
Jeff,
addition,
dude.
it used the weapon model of the Ashbringer
Oh,
itself.
Papa Jeff.
The
That's
weapon
right.
did terrible damage though, and only vendored for 1 copper. Funny enough, its item quality was upgraded to artifact quality with Legion, which probably had something to do with the Ashbringer finally being added to the game for
Wouldn't it
real.
make sense that the trash?
I should
bringer
probably
would be
mention here
below
as well that the
Ashbringer?
Ashbringer was itself a weapon that was in the game since Vanilla WoW but never added, and had all kinds of rumors and speculations on how to get it,
Yep.
that Blizzard referenced with its hidden skin requirements. I'd normally go into more detail about this item, but I've already covered it in extensive detail in another video of mine, and it's a super
That was the
well-known
best
weapon
quest
that's
line, man.
famous for never being added. And I'd like to put more obscure stuff in these kinds of videos. So now then, on to the last item on this list. Martin's Broken Staff, originally called Martin Thunder, was a GM item that had no weapon type, so it could be equipped by all classes. Gave 100 resistances to 4 different
Yo, this
elements,
Martin guy's beating
and had an
people's ass.
on-use effect to instantly
The
kill
chess piece
enemies
is the
within
same
30
thing.
yards. It was once one of the few artifact quality weapons in the game files,
remember this. I remember seeing
which
this.
was a thing always in the game since launch, but never made available to players until Legion. The weapon was changed in patch 3.3 to Martin's Broken Staff, a poor quality weapon with
I
most
wonder
of the
why.
same stats, but with its effect
Jeez.
now reading, the caster commits suicide, instantly killing themselves. This change to the item was made a short time after the whole Martin Fury fiasco. Martin Fury was a shirt item with the effect to instantly kill everything within 30 yards, just
That
like Martin
shirt
Thunder.
sucks.
Only
Damn.
it had a limited amount of charges. A player was given this shirt by mistake from a GM.
Yeah,
And then the guy
we
who
saw this
received
part
the shirt
yesterday.
gave it to one of his guild members, who then used it 14 times to one-shot raid bosses, giving them record kill
How do you know
times and even a few world first achievements. When Blizzard found out,
Not a
they
big
banned
deal.
everyone who was in the guy's guild for 24 hours, and then banned the player who used the shirt
Imagine
permanently.
just being a
They
social
then
in a
changed the
guild and
shirt to
getting
a
banned.
poor quality item, and then changed its effect to instead kill the player instantly,
I wonder if
rather
they
than
fired that
everything
GM.
around them. This change was most likely made just in case it was given to another player by mistake, and the change was brought over to the GM item Martin Thunder, which was then renamed to
surprise.
Martin's Broken Staff. And that's it for the video. There are a lot of other items and weapons never added to the game that I might cover in a future video.
I guess, like, so what's so funny about that is that I remember going back and looking on WoW Wiki. I don't know if you guys ever went on that website before, but back on WoW Wiki, I would always look at these kinds of items and I would just think about them. Watch the Preach Jaina video. Watch Vertnoon 5, please. Watch the Thunderfury video. People said they didn't want to watch it, so we're not going to watch it now.